The first sound was not loud, only a trembling call that drifted through the reeds and unsettled the morning calm. It came again, broken and unsteady, until the wetland itself seemed to hold its breath. At the edge of the swamp, half hidden by grass and shadow, a young giraffe fought against the grip of mud. Its thin legs, built for running across open plains, had betrayed it here. Each time it pushed upward, the earth swallowed deeper, leaving only the restless quiver of its shoulders, and the small defiant flick of its ears to signal that it had not yet given in. The calf had likely wandered too close to the softened ground while following its mother, who had since disappeared beyond the tree line. The swamp was a trap without edges, its surface appearing firm until weight pressed down and revealed its hunger. Now the calf's chest rose and fell in shallow bursts, its neck straining forward, nostrils wide with the sharp tang of panic. The long legs, coated in a heavy sheath of black mud, trembled each time it tried to shift. The sound of suction, wet and final, marked every failed attempt. The air above the swamp buzzed with insects, carried by the damp heat that settled over the wetland like a veil. Herons stood at a distance, still and watchful, their thin cries echoing across the water. The reeds swayed in small, uneasy movements, stirred by a breeze that offered no relief. Every detail carried the weight of waiting, as though the land itself knew the calf's strength was draining with each attempt to rise. For a time, the animal grew still. Only the soft movement of its chest showed life. Its long lashes blinked against the sting of mud, and its ears twitched with the small, automatic stubbornness of survival. Then, gathering what little force remained, the calf pushed again. Muscles tensed along its flanks, mud cracked around its trapped legs, and for a moment it seemed possible. The effort ended in collapse, the body dropping back into the swamp with a tired groan. The reeds whispered at the impact, bending toward the water's edge before straightening again. The young giraffe gave another cry, softer now, a sound less of defiance than of exhaustion. It turned its head, searching the horizon with wide, liquid eyes that caught the fading light. There was no answer from the distance, no shadow of the mother who should have been near. Only the long silence of the wetland met the call, heavy and unbroken. Still, the calf did not lie completely still. Its neck arched again, nostrils flaring as though scenting for something just beyond reach. The legs kicked once, weakly, against the suction that pinned them. There was no thought of surrender in the small movements, only the instinctive refusal to stop. Minutes stretched into hours beneath the sun. The heat pressed down, drawing sweat from the calf's trembling skin and thickening the mud that held it fast. Small birds darted around its head, catching insects from the air, undisturbed by the quiet struggle below. The swamp smelled of decay and wet soil, heavy and metallic. Still, through the weight of mud and the swarm of flies, the calf's breath continued. The last effort of the day was small, almost invisible. A twitch of the neck, a faint strain in the muscles along its flank, a deep exhale that fogged the damp air. It was not enough to free it, but it was proof that the fight remained inside. Though the swamp had claimed its strength, it had not claimed its will. The young giraffe lay half-buried, body quivering in the fading light, the sound of its breath blending with the wind through reeds. The struggle was far from over, but even in exhaustion, the calf refused to be still. The mud held firm, heavy and unyielding, yet the calf continued to resist its pull. After long moments of stillness, the young giraffe gathered what little strength remained and pushed once more. Its legs flailed against the swamp, splattering dark water and snapping reeds, but the effort only deepened the trap. A startled cry broke from its throat, sharp and strained, then faded into the air like a fading echo. When the thrashing ended, the calf collapsed again, sides heaving, its thin body quivering with exhaustion. Above the wetland, small birds circled in restless arcs, their wings cutting faint shadows over the struggling animal. Insects swarmed the damp air, drawn by the scent of sweat and mud. The calf's ears flicked at them, each twitch small but determined, as though even this minor defiance mattered in the long fight to endure. The air was thick with humidity, every breath dragging more heat into its chest. Each shallow exhale carried a faint wheeze, betraying how much the battle had already drained from its frame. The swamp gave nothing back, Every attempt to rise was answered with the slow, sucking sound of legs sinking deeper. Muscles rippled beneath the calf's slick coat, tense with effort, then shivered as fatigue overtook them. Its neck arched upward, searching the distance, but the reeds revealed no movement, no sign of the herd it had lost. Only the slow rustle of grass answered, a sound that felt both close and impossibly far. The stillness that followed was heavy but not complete. The calf shifted its weight, pressing forward with its chest, trying to slide free. For a moment, the mud cracked along its edge, thin lines spreading outward like veins. Hope flickered in that fragile motion. Yet the ground swallowed quickly again, and the calf sank back into its hollow. Another call rose, softer now, not sharp with panic, but threaded with fatigue. The reeds bent gently as the sound traveled, vanishing into the heat. Time seemed to stretch inside the swamp. The sun climbed higher, striking the animal's back, drying streaks of mud into brittle lines across its skin. Sweat mixed with dirt, leaving a dull coat that clung to its sides. The calf's nostrils widened, drawing in air as though each breath might carry it closer to strength. It blinked slowly, lashes heavy, then shook its head in a small gesture that sent droplets scattering from its jaw. Despite the weight pressing down on its body, there was a rhythm to its refusal. Each collapse was followed by stillness, and each stillness by another attempt, however small. The movements were weaker now, a shift of the neck, a twitch of the flanks, the slight lift of a leg. But they did not cease. Even as exhaustion trembled through its frame, the instinct to rise again burned quietly inside. Somewhere in the distance, a heron gave a thin call and took flight, its white wings gliding over the swamp. The calf's eyes followed the movement for a moment, head tilting, ears lifting in faint response. Then it lowered its neck again, resting against the damp earth, body quaking as though the fight within still whispered, "Not yet." The wetland remained indifferent. Flies hummed over the reeds, the heat thickened, and the water rippled softly around the calf's trapped legs. But in the restless twitch of its ears and the stubborn movement of its neck, there was no surrender. Even in weakness, the young giraffe carried the quiet persistence of life, refusing to yield completely to the mire that held it. The cries had grown weaker, carrying only short distances before dissolving into the thick air of the swamp. Yet they reached far enough. From the edge of the wetland, the faint sound had caught the attention of two rangers who were patrolling nearby. Guided by instinct and experience, they followed it through the tall grass until the reeds gave way, revealing the struggling calf. For a moment they stood still, letting the scene settle before them. The young giraffe's neck strained upward, its long legs buried deep, body trembling from exhaustion. The swamp had nearly claimed it, yet the flicker of life in its movements was undeniable. The men moved with care, their boots sinking quietly into the softened earth. Every step was measured, deliberate, for they knew sudden noise could unsettle the calf further. The animal's ears twitched at their approach, head turning with wide, anxious eyes that caught the light in quick flashes. A soft, broken cry escaped its throat, sharp at first, then falling into a hoarse whisper, as if every sound carried more effort than it could spare. The rangers paused, lowering their voices to a calm murmur that blended with the reeds. One whispered, "Easy now, little one," though he knew the words mattered less than the tone. The air was heavy with the smell of mud and water. Insects clung to the rangers' clothes as they crouched at the edge, studying the trap that held the calf. They saw how the mud had swallowed nearly half its legs, the suction pulling tighter with every small attempt to move. The swamp was not fast, but it was merciless, and they understood that the calf's strength was all that had kept it alive this long. The young giraffe tossed its head weakly, lashes blinking against the flies. Its body shifted, trying once more to rise, but the effort ended quickly, leaving it slumped against the muck. Its chest rose and fell in shallow bursts, each breath stirring the damp reeds around it. The rangers exchanged a glance, silent but certain. There was no time to wait, yet neither would rush. Slowly they stepped closer, one circling wide to find firmer ground, the other kneeling low to test the edge of the mud. Their movements were quiet, steady, showing no threat. The calf lifted its neck, eyes rolling toward them, its nostrils flaring with each quickened breath. It gave another broken cry, softer this time, as though sensing the presence of help. The men halted again, letting the sound fade, waiting for the animal's trembling to ease before they shifted forward. The reeds whispered in the breeze as the swamp held the calf fast. Small ripples spread across the water where insects landed, and the weight of silence pressed in around them. The rangers studied the ground, their minds measuring angles and choices. They spoke only once more, a low assurance given not to be understood, but to fill the heavy quiet. "We've got you!" The calf blinked, its head lowering slightly as though drained by the effort of calling out. Its legs remained trapped, every twitch answered by the slow, greedy pull of mud. But now, at the edge of the swamp, human presence broke the long solitude of its struggle. The rangers, calm and deliberate, stood within reach, ready to begin. One ranger uncoiled a rope from his pack, its fibers rough and stained from use. The other scanned the ground for the firmest footing, careful not to sink into the mire himself. They moved slowly, speaking little, their gestures deliberate, their silence filled with purpose. The calf's eyes followed them with wide, restless movements, ears twitching, body trembling with the strain of every shallow breath. It gave a low, broken sound as the rope was slid beneath its chest, the mud clinging tightly around its legs. The men paused, waiting until the calf settled, then tightened their grip. The first pull was cautious, a small test of strength against the swamp's hold. The calf kicked weakly in response, its legs pushing against both mud and rope, the effort scattering dark water in slow arcs. For a moment the suction deepened, tugging harder, but then a faint shift came. The body edged forward by the smallest measure, no more than the width of a hoof. The rangers steadied themselves, leaning back in rhythm, muscles tight with strain. The air grew heavy with effort. Sweat slid down their brows, mingling with the damp heat of the swamp. Their breaths came in sharp, steady bursts, controlled so as not to startle the calf. "Easy now, little one," one of them whispered, the words quiet enough to blend with the reeds. The sound carried calm, even as his arms burned with the pull. The other ranger steadied the rope, adjusting the angle to avoid the sharp tug that might cause panic. The calf's body jolted again, its neck arching upward in a sudden attempt to rise. Mud cracked around its trapped legs, releasing a thick gurgle of water, as if the swamp resisted every inch. But the rope held firm, the hands behind it steady, and slowly the calf shifted forward another pace. The reeds bowed gently with the movement, their tips brushing against its sides. At times the calf seemed to lose the will to move, collapsing heavily against the muck. Its chest heaved, nostrils flaring, eyes half-lidded with fatigue. The rangers paused each time, letting it rest. They knew forcing the moment would break more than mud. It would break the fragile trust that was beginning to form in the space between struggle and help. When the animal stirred again, lifting its head, the men resumed, pulling not with urgency but with patience. Minute by minute, the battle shifted. What had once seemed an immovable weight began to give way. Each tug drew the calf nearer to the drier ground where reeds thinned and soil held firm. The movements were clumsy, the mud reluctant to let go, but the pattern held: effort, pause, breath, and another inch gained. The calf began to respond in small ways. Its legs, though weak, kicked more purposefully, not only against the swamp but toward freedom. Its ears twitched at the murmur of the men, head turning slightly toward their steady presence. The suction loosened bit by bit, replaced by wet slaps as hooves lifted free. Finally, with a long pull and one desperate kick from the calf, its front legs broke clear. The body slid forward, collapsing on the firmer ground, chest heaving against the reeds. Mud clung in thick layers across its flanks, dripping in slow streams back into the swamp. The rangers released the rope but did not step away, watching carefully as the calf lay trembling, half free, half spent. For the first time, the air shifted lighter, the long silence breaking into the quiet relief of breath. The struggle ended not with a burst of triumph, but with a shuddering collapse. The young calf, coated in a thick layer of mud, fell forward onto trembling knees. Its breath came in quick, uneven pulls, each one lifting its narrow chest against the heavy press of exhaustion. The rescue had pushed its limits, yet the small body still pulsed with life. For a long moment it did not try to rise, the ground beneath it dark and wet, shaped by the weight of its fight. The rangers stood back, their movements careful and still. They had learned long ago that the first few minutes after release were the most fragile, when an animal balanced between defeat and survival. One of them murmured under his breath, a simple reassurance meant for himself as much as for the calf. "You're all right, little one." His words carried no demand, only a quiet hope. Before silence reclaimed the space around them, the calf's head turned weakly, ears flicking at the faint rustle of the savanna. Its nostrils flared as it searched for a scent beyond the mud, beyond the lingering presence of humans. A sharp snort cut the air, followed by a long pause. Then, with a trembling push of its front legs, it tried to lift. Muscles quivered, collapsed, then gathered again. A second attempt, slower, steadier. This time the long limbs found their rhythm, clumsy but certain. When the calf finally stood, the sight carried more weight than any words could hold. Beyond the low brush, a shadow moved. The mother giraffe had been pacing since the rescue began, circling with uneasy strides, her neck rising and falling in restless arcs. She had not strayed far, her wide eyes fixed on the space where her calf had vanished. Now, as the young one staggered upright, she stopped. For a moment, she did not move at all. Her body stilled by the recognition of life returned. The calf turned toward her, legs stiff and uneven, each step like a question. Mud clung to its sides, drying in patches, but its head lifted higher with each pace. The space between them closed slowly, stretched by fatigue and distance. The mother lowered her head as it approached, a deep groan slipping from her throat, a sound of relief, carried low and steady. The calf pressed weakly against her chest, leaning into the warmth of her towering frame. The rangers stayed where they were, no longer part of what unfolded. Their work had ended the moment the calf took its first unassisted step. Now they watched quietly as if witnessing something sacred. No one spoke. No one moved closer. They knew the wild needed no applause, only space. The reunion did not linger. Within minutes, the mother turned, her long stride drawing them both toward the horizon. The calf stumbled once more, nearly folding beneath its own weight, but steadied itself against her side. Together they wove through the tall grass, their outlines fading with each step until only the shifting blades remained. The land returned to silence. The tracks in the mud told of struggle, of human hands that had worked carefully in the shadows of nature's rhythm. But those marks would vanish with the next rain, as though the moment had never happened. The only lasting sign would be the calf itself, moving again through the wilderness where it belonged. The rangers stood until the pair disappeared from sight. No cheers marked the end, only the quiet satisfaction of having restored balance, if only for one fragile life. A soft wind stirred the grass around them, bending it in long, gentle waves. The sun had begun its descent, spilling a pale gold across the plain. Far in the distance, the faint silhouettes of other giraffes shifted like tall ghosts among the trees. Hope lingered there, not in words or gestures, but in the quiet image of a calf walking once more at its mother's side. Hidden again in the vastness of the wild,